Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast, where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. The YouTube viewers are probably wondering why Matt and I are wearing hat and shades. We got two reasons. One, you just call me Les Charles because y'all don't see the vision. And number two, of course, we love Coach Prime on this podcast. And of course, they got the big dub against Colorado State yesterday. And Matt, scale of 1 to 10, how stupid does was it Jay or Jake Norvell look after all this, after everything that happened this week?
Well, not as stupid as he should have looked, I'll be honest. When he did that, I thought it was either a ploy by ESPN or he just really wanted to lose by 60 points. But credit where credit's due. They almost backed it up. Granted, we could talk about the quality of play in that game till we're blue in the face. Still, don't poke the bear unless you're really looking for a fight. That's what it comes down to.
You know, the best part about all this to me is like, he made the big spiel like when he's talking to grown-ups, he takes the hat, he takes the shades off, but then all the pictures from on social media started surfacing of where like he's in the post-game pressers or like the middle of the week pressers and he's got the visor and the other hats on. So it's like, oh, okay, now you're just capping. You just
That's
like
a
looking to start shit right now.
that's a debate for another time about if a visor's a hat. We'll have to get into that on another show.
That wasn't the debate I was trying to have, Matt. I was just trying to say that this guy is straight capping right now.
Capping, get it?
Yes. But like, okay, so I when I texted Matt before the show, I was like telling him that we're gonna definitely wear some hat and some shades for this episode. And this man tells me that he has no pair of shades, which like surprises the hell out of me. I mean, obviously you all can probably guess that I'm gonna have like a pair of Ray-Bans like I got on right now. But like I would have thought Matt would have had like some like cryptid shades or something, like some Loch Ness monster shades going on, or a Bigfoot shades, or given other topics we've talked about on this podcast, the Beast of Busco shades. I could probably pick you up on air next time I'm in Busco.
That would actually be really cool. I would love that. Thank you. But
You know
I
that
don't have sunglasses because I wear real glasses, and they want you to buy the prescription lenses, and I can't do the thing where they just slide on. I would lose those in a heartbeat. But to make up for it, I did bring my victory cigar.
Oh, that's perfect. Let's go. Smoking on that Joe Burrow pack. Smoking on that Joe Burrow. Let's go. Who
It is
says me
my
and Matt don't have drip on the show?
This is my vape pen right here. No, it's actually just plastics. I've had this forever. But no, it's a plastic cigar.
I would actually shit myself if you actually walked on set and actually had a real cigar that you just lighted up.
You want to watch me choke?
You
That's what
don't
would happen.
inhale cigars, Matt.
Bless, I've never smoked anything in my life. I've only smoked meats. I
You
don't
know
know
that is.
anything.
Hey, I like it. I only smoke meats. I like it. I like it.
I am a professional barbecuer now. You give me that charcoal, you give me that grill, bam, we having burgers, we having steak, we having kebabs.
All I know,
You know how it is.
I mean, all I'm getting out of this is that Matt is Hemi Neutron on the grill. So
Well, there are some explosions, whether I want there to be or not. So,
now I'm questioning your abilities. You should
oh,
have just. I would have left that out. I
it
definitely
was
would have left that out.
my first couple of times on my own didn't go so well. I discovered the power of lighter fluid.
I'll say if you keep rocking that cigar, I'm gonna have to like go in the other room and get my cigar, my real cigar. Okay, I'm tempted to go. Okay. Anyways, no, we have a show to get to. We need to stop being distracted, Matt. We have a show to talk about.
I
And
feel
of
like you look
course, but I want before we get started into the main topics of the show, I do want to say that even though yes, we are the college offseason podcast and we talk about recruiting and we talk about coaching moves and we talk about all that fun stuff, and the shades are going to come off for this one.
my
Um,
head is killing me.
yeah, we are not going to address the Mel Tucker situation.
Mm.
I'm just going to simply put it like this: I was raised by a single mother, and I learned very quickly in life that we respect women. So I encourage everyone who listens to this podcast to respect women, as Matt and I respect women on a day to day basis. So that's
Amen.
all. That's all I have to say about that, Matt. If you want to add anything, if not, we can just perfect. We'll just start right
No,
into it. All
I
right,
think you hit it. I think you hit on the head.
sounds good. I think we're going to get right into it. So, obviously, being the college offseason podcast, Matt and I don't talk a lot about the regular season. And when we do talk about the regular season, we want to talk about some of the predictions that we made in the offseason and how they're implying to how the regular season landscape is looking right now. So, Matt, based on the predictions you made this offseason, and given that we are 3 to 4 weeks into the college football regular season, talk to me about some of the predictions that you're proud of, some of the predictions that you think you got wrong, all of the above. This is your time. You vent to me right now.
Well, I thought Colorado would be good. I thought they would definitely they would be much improved from last year. But I thought their first couple weeks would be a struggle, and I thought by this point they'd probably be 2-1, but they're 3-0. And even though the back end of their schedule has gotten a lot tougher, I'm proud. I'm actually very happy to say that 5-7 seems a bit low. I definitely see a path for them to get to 6 wins, even if they drop these next 2 weeks. They've got games with Arizona, who just lost to, I believe, Fresno State, or Arizona State lost to Fresno State. And they've got games with Stanford, who just lost to Sacramento State, in addition to Arizona, who's been a very up and down team. There's 3 wins right there against some teams who have been struggling in the Pac 12 lately. But they've now out of nowhere, well, not out of nowhere. Washington State is good again. UCLA is back to being ranked. It's still a tough schedule, but these first 3 games are huge for them because now you can skid a bit when you have to because you're going to be playing some tough competition. If you steal a game that you're not supposed to win and go 7-5, it's even better. But I'm happy to admit that Colorado is a better project and a better product than what I thought they'd be right now. It has nothing to do with the coaching. It has nothing to do with the players. It has everything to do with culture and gelling. And they gelled on the field a lot quicker than I thought they could have. And I feel like that TCU game is what made the big difference here because you could tell over the course of that game that you were watching a team learn to play together in real time. And they overcame a lot of adversity in that game. They overcame a lot of adversity last night. I mean, part of the reason why that game was so close is you lose Travis Hunter very early to an awful hit. We're just going to end it there because we don't like to bring people down. But you lose him to an awful hit. You're not going to have him the next couple games. That's going to be tough. But I feel like what we're seeing is a team that's learning on the fly to gel together. And the main thing is they're that's
Yeah, Matt, you kind of froze on me a little bit.
what really been impressive is just watching him.
Well, this is awkward. Matt, you there, buddy? Seems I have lost connection to my co-host Matt. Um, yeah, my Wi-Fi is good. Maybe his is out. Sorry for the little technical difficulties. Matt, continue with what you were saying, sir.
So that awful hit on Travis Hunter, you overcome that. You overcome having probably your worst game of the year to that point, and you win in 2 overtimes in a pretty good fashion. So what we're seeing, I think, really is a team that's learning to gel, find their strengths on the fly. And like I said, it doesn't matter. You may go on a skid for 2 games here, but you're playing Oregon and USC. That's to be expected for anybody's first year coach. But what matters is they're gelling on the fly. The kids there are buying into the culture. There's not this horrible, like, oh, the transfer portal killed this team type thing. It's not a cautionary tale. They've already doubled their win total. So, I mean, anything from this point on is just gravy. So, I'm very happy to say that Colorado 5-7 was a little bit low. I'm still not going to go crazy and say they're going to the playoff, but they're at least going to a bowl game now. They're at least going to a bowl game, and they're going to be sending Shadur Sanders to New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony if this goes to plan.
Absolutely. Is there any other takes you want to address, or are you ready for me
Well,
to?
no, I've got a couple if you want to get into them.
Oh yeah, because this whole segment was dedicated to you, Matt. Because while we were on that long hiatus, I was making snippets on the Spotify channel, and I pretty much
That's
rubbed in our our listeners' faces of all the things I've gotten right so far, which is a lot, by the way.
I still don't know if it's about the Duke thing though, but I am glad that we were right about Clemson. I mean, I remember feeling a little bit shaky about that one just because much is the case with the Alabama thing, where it's like, do you really pronounce the bad guy in the horror movie dead until like you see the sequel? Because Freddy Krueger always comes back, Jason always comes back. Dabo Sweeney's always waiting in the basement with the knife, like getting ready to force you to give up your NIL money or something. But after the performance against Duke, it was like, okay, this isn't really looking good. And yeah, I know they had a good second half performance against Charleston Southern. But let's not forget in the first half they looked abysmal against Charleston Southern.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I know we both like Will Shipley a lot. He's not going to cover up. They're going to have to learn really quickly that they just can't do that in the ACC. I know it's not a great conference, but the top dogs, the Dukes, the Florida States, hell, even the Louisvilles, even though they don't play them, all look really good so far. And a slow start out of the gate is not the way you want to go if you're Clemson. So I think that what we're seeing here with these two stories, especially the Clemson and the Florida State, or Clemson and Florida State, Clemson and Colorado, the two C's, is this kind of changing of the guard type thing in terms of college football. And this will be part of our next subject too, where you're kind of seeing the coaches who were a little bit short on NIL, a little bit hokey and not into player freedom, whatever you want to call it, are now starting to see you can say that and you'll get good kids, but you're not going to get a lot of super duper talented kids or a lot of depth from that. People are going to remember your statements about NIL and about things like that to the point where they'll go somewhere like with Coach Prime, where it's like, I can be myself here. We're on the sideline, we're on college game day, saying now it's personal and all that stuff. You can bank on tradition and you can bank on location, you can bank on conference even. But at the end of the day, a kid's going to go where they know they can make a little bank because they're young and they need money, and where they feel like they can be themselves, where it feels like home, where it feels like they're respected. And if they're not getting that from one of these schools that looks like a traditional power, then they're going to go to the next hot prospect coach like Deion Sanders. I don't know who that's going to be, but I think we're kind of seeing a fundamental shift in the way we're going to see coaches approach the college football going forward, especially with the new conference layouts and everything like that. And I mean, we were right. I'd like to think we were right too. I think you and I were both on the same page, calling the Pac-12 one of the deepest conferences this year.
Yeah,
And they've got
they look
eight
like the
ranked.
best conference right now.
They've
I'm
got
just gonna
eight
say it. They look
teams.
like the best conference right now.
You've got eight ranked teams. You've got, I think, about five or six, maybe even seven quarterbacks who, on a weekly basis, will just make your jaw drop. I mean, whether it be, and even the two teams everyone's making fun of because they're getting left behind, Washington State and Oregon State. You've got Cameron Ward and DJ Ungale ready to go out and ball out. So I mean, we were right about the Pac-12. We were right about Clemson. We were right about Colorado. You were a little bit more high on Colorado than me, but still, we were both hoping it would work out, and it has. So I don't really think we have any glaring like, oh man, we were wrong here because we really haven't seen a lot of the teams we picked get tested yet. Michigan, in spite of their hokey gestures to honor their head coach, hasn't really played a team that's going to challenge them yet. That's probably going to change very soon. But at the moment, you've played Eastern Carolina, and I don't know who else because those games weren't even worth watching because we all knew what was going to happen. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. The one thing I think we were a little bit off on is maybe we were a little bit too high on Wisconsin, but
That's
they played
I was gonna bring them up. Yeah,
I mean, but that's like we said, that's what I was afraid of with Coach Prime. It just takes some people a while to learn a new offense. But I do love the fact they're calling it the Dairy Raid offense. That's brilliant.
that's
I
pretty awesome.
love it. And I hope Wisconsin wins more games because of it, because I want to just hear Gus Johnson scream Dairy Raid at the top of his lungs at some point this season.
You know what they should also do? because
What?
in honor of the new series coming out on HBO Max in 2024, if their offense gets as like scary as I think they're going to be, they should actually name it Welcome to Derry.
That would actually be pretty funny.
That would be pretty awesome. So, but
Just
the dairy raid is that's genius. I mean, whoever came up with
I
it, like
love that.
hats off to you. Like, I mean, as I flex my receding hairline to you all. Um,
Oh, we're all there. But yeah,
not everybody.
those are my big three. But now, Les, I think we're going to take things in a slightly different direction.
Well,
Talking about talking
before we
about
do that,
oh, you do.
before we do that, I am because believe it or not, even though that I call myself Hemi Prime on this episode, Hemi Neutron, and I've been basically all over Spotify talking about how I told you also I see the future. Believe it or not, I'm actually a pretty fair guy. And
Okay.
I will be the first to admit, even as much as I've gotten right so far this college football season, I've gotten a few things wrong. And I'm going to address them real quick before we get into the main topic of today's show. And yeah, so obviously, y'all know the phrase. It's not a less is more sports podcast without shouting out Boise State. But so far this year, they've given me every reason to shout them out, but not in any way good way because they started the season 0-2 before picking up the win yesterday. The Washington game, I was watching them, and I feel like their game plan to start that game was pretty solid. They were hanging with Washington for most of the first three quarters. But then, obviously, when you watch Washington, you know that their passing attack is going to click eventually. You know, Michael Penix is going to hit Roma Duze, Jalen McMillan, all of them, and then they're just going to light up the scoreboard. I think in the Washington game, that took Boise State away from what they're good at. You know, using Taylon Green, Ashton Jeanty, George Halani in the ground game, and actually like controlling the tempo of the game. And I think when they tried to match Washington's passing attack, they went away from what they do best, and I think that hurt them more than it helped them at all. And then UCF, that was a more concerning game. If I'm a Boise State fan, that's a more concerning game because they were able to move the ball well in that game, but once they got in opposing territory, they just got too cute. I mean, I don't really have a better way to describe it except for they just got too cute, like in opposing territory, and just messed up. And of course, the big thing is I don't know who is the hands coach on that team, but he needs to be fired because they cannot hold on to the freaking ball. Even yesterday in their win, they would end up winning 42-18 over North Dakota State. Um, but Ashton Jeanty had two fumbles, countless drops. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's like a epidemic of drops going on in Boise, but like they need to figure that out. That's crazy. Just hold on to the damn ball. Like they could have put that game away a long time ago, and they didn't. They let North Dakota State hang around too long, but of course they would pull away later. And they started showing flashes of the team that I think they could be. And the good news is they do have a favorable schedule coming up. But here's the thing: I was really high on Boise State. They're not making me look good so far. Shame on you guys. Now, I will say the one player that is making me look really good is Ashton Jeanty because every game he's either got 200 all-purpose yards and or 2 to 3+ touchdowns a game, which I was on this podcast saying he's basically the best kept secret in college football as far as star players, and he's, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the country, if not the best running back in the country. He's making me look really good, and even though he had two fumbles against North Dakota State yesterday, he still had 3 touchdowns. Not a great rushing performance, but still got in the end zone 3 times. I was prepared to also talk about Florida because, I was actually really high on Florida after watching their spring game, but they beat Tennessee, which I predicted. I do want to throw that out there. And so they're kind of scratching out. But as far as that, I think you hit the nail on the head. Wisconsin is a team that I think both you and I were pretty high on, and they haven't looked to part yet. But there's still time.
There's still time.
There's still time for the dairy raid to take over.
Another guy who we were kind of a little bit low on, who's come out of nowhere, Neil Brown, West Virginia. They beat Pittsburgh. They did it. So I mean,
because Neil Brown was one of the guys that I said was on the hottest coaching seat heading into the season. So that was a big time win for Neil Brown.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, Jimbo Fisher is proving that his seat is on fire, but the money's just too damn high.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, because the hiring of Bobby Petrino looks like it's actually working out somewhat good. Because
Yeah,
their offenses look good, but I mean, it's like they look. How do I explain this to a casual listener? They looked like a not very well coached team top to bottom, and what I mean by that is
yeah.
that very well coached teams make disciplined plays when it matters most, or they make plays when it count, and they just don't. And that's the
They
problem.
just don't. And
They
that's the
just don't.
amazing thing,
Yeah,
especially
not.
on that defensive unit. They've
Mm,
got like one of the bulkiest defensive lines. Watching Miami just gash them last week was incredible.
yeah, but anyways, I think that wraps up everything we have to say about our right and wrong predictions so far within the college football season. However, now this is the main portion of the podcast, and I messaged this to Matt as soon as I saw it on Twitter. But according to sources close to Nick Saban, this could be potentially his last season as the Crimson Tide head coach. So, Matt, when I shared this to you, what were your initial thoughts?
It's not super shocking. I mean, you're 71 years old. You've won all the national titles on earth, it feels like. Your place in college football history is cemented. No one would blame you at all if you like just gave up. But like I said, it hints back to something I mentioned earlier. It just feels like, the changing of the guard, kind of like what we're going through in the NFL right now. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback, but there's no Peyton Manning, there's no Tom Brady, there's no Big Ben. It's like you're in a transition. You're entering a transition period where like the old coaches who used to win all the national championships are finding themselves, getting older, looking at the game, looking at the way it's changing, seeing where things are going with the mega conferences and the transfer portal and the NIL, and just deciding, you know, I know I'm a good coach, but coaching is so much more than showing up and watching film now. Coaching is so much more than that. And that's something that at age 71, I can't do anymore. These kids are a totally different generation. The work ethics don't match up. The values don't match up. The social commentary, the culture, it just doesn't match up anymore. And that's part of why I think, a guy like Nick Saban would want to bow out while he's ahead. I mean, Alabama is not a bad team right now. I mean, they don't look good, but I'm not going to say, oh, they're going 4-8. But I wouldn't be surprised if they went 8-4 or something like that. And at that point, you see the slippage. You know you're going to have to raise or like hand pick a quarterback, raise a quarterback. If you don't get one in the transfer portal, like you said, you've been waiting. You said it yourself, if Tyler Buckner starts, it's over. And even though they won
Tyler
yesterday,
Buckner.
it didn't feel like a
He
win at
didn't finish the
all.
game though. Ty
Yeah,
Simpson finished the game.
yeah. I mean that weather delay is kind of like the encapsulation of Alabama's season so far in a lot of ways. But I mean, you see all this coming. I wouldn't blame him at all. You leave on your own terms. You don't leave getting fired. Maybe you win like the Outback Bowl or something crazy like that, and just say, you know what, I'm 71. I can see the landscape is changing. I think I'm gonna bow out, and I wouldn't blame him at all for that.
Before I get started in the next segment, I do want to say that if Nick Saban does indeed retire at the end of the year, y'all are not prepared for how many times I'm just going to shove down your all's throat that Texas forced him to retire.
I have a
Hook 'em
block
horns,
button.
baby. Hook 'em horns, baby. But anyway, so as for this next segment, I'm going to rattle off some names, and Matt, what I want you to do is give me your thoughts on each name as in a potential replacement for Nick Saban in Alabama. So I'm ready whenever you are.
Let's go ahead and start because I think just go ahead and start.
All right, first name. I got Brian DeBall of the New York Giants head coach.
That's an interesting one to me. I don't know. It just depends now. I mean, we've seen what's going on in New York right now. That to me just depends on how the Giants do this year because, we've seen guys go from pro to college is just unusual. So, while I do like that move from a coaching standpoint, I'm going to put the chances at very low.
All right. Next name, Dabo Sweeney.
I am going to put the chances that this one at near zero at this point.
Really?
Yes. I know that people are thinking he fits the Alabama culture well. That good, oh, shucks, wood, whatever you want to call it. Southern hospitality, I guess. But what we're seeing this year is that, like, people don't want to play for a guy who, like, constantly kiboshes things that empower them, like the NIL, like the transfer portal. And in a conference like the SEC, it's bad enough in the ACC where you got to worry about Florida State, Miami, whoever else like is on an upswing that given year, whether it be Louisville, whether it be Duke, getting you. Imagine trying that, and then Brian Kelly swoops in and goes, "Hey, you can have your own car dealership in Baton Rouge if you come play for LSU." Or Lane Kiffin goes, "I run a fun, exciting offense at Ole Miss, and you can have all the money in the world." Or by this point, Texas just drives the dump truck of money up to your house and says, "Hey, you want to endorse a barbecue restaurant? Come on down." And Dabo Sweeney's like, "Well, I think we should play for the integrity of the game." It's like, I'm all about integrity, but I'm going to the place that's going to give me $1 million to put my face on a billboard in downtown Austin. You know, so that's what
Mhm.
I'm thinking there. So unless Clemson has some kind of epic rebound this year, I think that the shine on we and that's the crazy thing about this too. Just 2 years ago, people were like, "Oh yeah, Dabo Sweeney is the natural successor to Nick Saban,"
That's
and
why I
now the
asked it. Yeah.
game and now the game has shifted so much in 2 years that it's like I don't know if Alabama would even do that at this point. So right now, I'm putting the chances on that one at even lower than Brian Dable, and I thought that one was low.
So speaking of Lane Kiffin, he was actually the next name on my list. Lane Kiffin. What do you think the odds are he comes to Alabama?
I think this is one of the more interesting cases because he does play such an interesting offense. He knows Alabama's culture. He knows the players. He knows who to recruit. He knows how to recruit. If you give him a good defensive coordinator, I think that could be a pretty decent hire. The only thing that's going to bother people is what happened with USC.
Or the comments he just made about mental health?
Yes, which were despicable, and we'll get in. There will be other shows to get into how awful that is. Right now, I put that at a medium.
All right, so we got 10 minutes to go, so I'm going to speed round. Next one. And this is now I'm interested to see your reaction on this one. Deion Sanders.
This is funny because I have one big takeaway from all this, and I would say right now as it stands, that's low because I really do think he's committed to seeing his kids at Colorado. I think he knows they have one chance to transfer. He doesn't. He's not going to waste time with his own sons and Travis Hunter, who's basically his own kid now, wasting a year of their career, of their NFL potential, while he moves to Alabama. So ask me that question again in like 4 years.
Fair enough. All right, so for time constraints, I got about three more names I'm going to ask you. So instead of
Okay.
just giving you your opinion on all three, I'm going to say the three names out loud. You tell me which one of those three names you think has the best opportunity to succeed Nick Saban at Alabama. All right.
Okay.
Bill O'Brien, Mario Cristobal, or Dave Arnada from Baylor.
Of the three of those, I would pick Mario Cristobal actually, just because I think he's doing the best job right now. He's been in multiple spots and built them up. And that's really the only reason why. Because Les, here's my big takeaway from all this. I think right now that we're seeing a fundamental. I've said this a couple times, but we're seeing just a fundamental shift in college football and coaching, because people throw out Mike Norvell too, Dave Aranda from Baylor, and none of those guys are moving the needle. What we're going to see in the next few years in college football is two forms of coaching, and it's going to be an arms race to see which one works better. And so far, one is clearly winning. There are going to be two types of coaches now. There are going to be guys like Matt Rule and Dave Aranda who slowly build their programs with, 3-star, 4-star guys that stay for 3 years. And then there are going to be guys like Deion Sanders, like Lincoln Riley, who are flashy and fun and all about player stuff, who just go out and get whoever they want in the transfer portal, let NIL take care of the rest, bring their dogs in, and just see where it goes. And so far, it's hard to argue against those fast moving guys. Caleb Williams has a Heisman. This is the most hype around Colorado we've had in decades, it feels like. So there are going to be two schools of thought, I think, going with coaching. And in a world where you're approaching the mega conferences where it's all about the money and all about the ratings, you're going to lose a lot. I don't know how well guys who like methodically plan to build their programs will go, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
A guy like Jeff Braun, he's going to build, he's already 3-0, he's building up Louisville. But, in the era of the mega conference where people are more like, and with an expanded playoff as well, like, we got to make the playoff. We've got to survive the next round of conference realignment. I mean, think about it. I mean, Deion Sanders very well could have saved Colorado from being in the Mountain West, and that's going to be a part of it. It's not just understanding NIL. It's not just understanding the new generation of players. It's understanding the money and what move is going to get you talked about, what move is going to get you protected. And a lot of fans would take a 3-0 start over, what 1-2, but you're building a good program right now. So when we talk about following Nick Saban, I don't know who actually is the best fit because none of these guys in this new generation are moving the needle the way he did. Or there's probably an option out there we're not even thinking of, a former player, somebody flashy from Alabama. Maybe Julio Jones is the next coach at Alabama. I don't know.
It's not, we can't rule it out.
So maybe that's the future is just getting these flashy guys with a reputation who know how to use the portal, who play fun football, and just go from there. Instead of guys who, our first year we'll go 4-8. Our second year we'll go 6-6. Third year we'll be 8-4. Fourth year we'll be 9-3, 10-2, and in the championship game. I don't know if that's going to work anymore. College football is going to become more increasingly cutthroat as people are fighting over conference and people are fighting over money. So when you were asking me this, I'm like, none of these guys move the needle in the way that I think Alabama fans want the needle to be moved. Mario Cristobal doesn't get it done. Matt Rule doesn't get it done. They want somebody who's going to get it done. They want somebody who's famous, who's going to have the same kind of impact that Deion Sanders and Lincoln Riley have had for their programs. And I don't know who that is right now. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was just somebody completely out of left field. But I think that's where we're heading in college football. Is there are two kinds of there's going to be two programs. It's going to be two types of programs. It's going to be an arms race to see which one has the most success in the long run.
Absolutely. And as far as my opinion on this, I have three names that I think have the best potential chance to be the next Alabama head coach. Number one, I actually have Brian DeBolt. And the reason I say that is because, he was a very successful offensive coordinator at Alabama. He did make a good transition to the NFL, led the Giants to the playoffs, but is also already experiencing enough troubles in the NFL that if more performances after that Dallas game, more performances like that Dallas game, he could be very well out of a job. And I guarantee you Alabama would swoop him right up. Number two, I believe it or not, I think it could be Lane Kiffin. And the reason I say that is because I do agree with your take on just the just where college football is headed with those flashy head coaches. Lane Kiffin's been a coach at the collegiate level. He's coached at Alabama. He coaches a flashy offense, and to top it off, he could just bring his defensive coordinator with him, and he would just come right back to Bama, where he had a lot of success. Like he had a top 10 defense basically 4 years in a row. So
Yeah.
that would be Lane Kiffin. And the third one, I got a name I didn't even mention. Mike Locksley of Maryland. He's basically rebuilt Maryland's football program. They've won back-to-back bowl games for the first time in 20 years. And again, another creative offensive mind, which is the direction that college football is going. So if I had to take my three choices, it would be Brian DeBolt, Lane Kiffin, and Mike Locksley. And I'm going to say one more thing about Lane Kiffin, though. Do we really think that Alabama is very PC enough to where they would care about those mental health comments?
Oh no! If he wins, they will forgive everything. And another guy I was thinking of too, Kellen DeBoer.
Oh, that would be fun.
That would be fun.
That would be a lot of fun because you look what he's done at Washington in a short time.
A lot of
Imagine
offense.
a lot of offense. Now imagine the players he'd be able to get to come to Bama.
That's what I'm thinking. That's an explosive offense. Imagine if Alabama had Michael Penix Jr. right now.
I mean, they would have smacked us. I'm not gonna lie.
See, that's what I'm saying. You got to get guys who can recruit and who know how to play offense.
I'm not again. Well, I guess that we don't even know if Nick Saban is actually going to retire. So I mean, we really can't rule anything out. And besides, and I think you said the most accurate statement. It's going to be somebody that we're not thinking of.
Yes. It's
But
probably
hey,
going to come out of left field. We're going to question it, and then Alabama will win 5 more titles.
I can see it happening because that's what we're. We're not journalists on the show. We're just two guys that like to talk about the college offseason.
Yep, that's all we are.
That's all we are, and that is all the time we have for today. As
Indeed.
always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports podcast, Spotify, and YouTube channel. In the comment section below, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, and also follow our updates on our new content coming out soon on the Facebook, Twitter, and Threads pages. And until next time, as I need to give Matt a break so he can go smoke his victory cigar for another successful episode.
Ah,
Smoking on that Joe Burrow pack.
I don't know about that. He's 0-2.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
We're not
well,
going to talk about that.
yeah, we're not an NFL podcast anymore. Besides, Joe Burrow always starts slow in September.
He does.
You got to
That's
worry.
because he
Yeah,
needs
you
to
got to worry
thaw.
about Joe Burrow in September. You got to worry about him in December and January.
He's got to thaw, got to thaw out.
Yeah, as soon as the months get cold and he really officially becomes Joe Burrow.
All right. Well, we'll see everybody next time.
Yeah, we need to get out here.
Before we make any more dad jokes.
No.